I'm Scott August. I want to talk to you a little bit about flute maintenance, just really briefly. A lot of flute players that I think would know this already don't, and that's how to handle the flute when it gets too much moisture in it. When you're playing an instrument like this, obviously saliva and water vapor from your lungs gets inside the flute, and when too much of this moisture actually forces its way into the flue, which is the little slit or gap that exists between the top of the bird and the flute itself, the bottom of the bird and the top of the flute. Again, we call this the flue. It'll actually choke off the sound, and before that it'll just make the sound dull and lifeless. So when too much water gets into the flute, what we want to do is we want to remove the block. And while this may seem like sort of an overwhelming and challenging thing to do if you're a beginning flute player, it's actually quite easy, and I do it every day. So all we want to do here is take the flute, kind of loosen the knot a little bit. Now, normally if the block is tied around twice like this, or the wrap is tied around, I'll just slide it off. I won't actually take it all the way off. So this part will be very wet, the bottom of the block itself. So take a cloth or your arm, your sleeve, I do that all the time, and just dry it off. The same thing will be true of this space here, between the hole that's under the block and then the true sound hole, the one that we see. Just want to dry it off a little bit. You can use your sleeve again or a cloth, whatever seems best for you. Then we just take the block, put it back on, and we want to line the forward part of the block, the end. Now this one kind of angles out a little bit, so we don't want to worry about that. Just this bottom part here, we want to line that up with the side of the true sound hole that is facing closest to the player itself. So we'll do that just sort of in a rough way. Right now it doesn't have to be too precise. And then I'm going to pull it and I'm going to hold it. And I usually take my arm and I use my arm to kind of position it, and then I have both hands free to tie it down. And just tie it off like this. Now I will go in and by sight I will make sure again that the forward part of the block is lined up with the part of the hole that's facing towards the mouthpiece. I want to get those to be almost exactly perfectly lined up. My own personal opinion of the way I play is I bring it back just a hair, maybe 1/8 of an inch. It seems to make the sound just a little brighter in my opinion. But technically the maker has made the sweet spot of the flute where the front of the block and the back of the true sound hole are lined up completely. So that's how you take the block off. Now, one of the things that I forgot to mention was that when the block is off, if you've been playing for a long time, it's highly advisable that you let the flute dry overnight would be a good idea. And also let it drain through the mouthpiece, because that's where you pushed all the water vapor up. It's not going to go through the flute. There's a wall in between here anyway that will prevent that from happening. So leave the block off overnight and let the flute, any way you can prop it up this way with the block off now, will allow it to drain easily. That's a quick look about how we handle watering out or moisture in your flute. If you're looking for more information and helpful tips about playing and flute care, you can find that on the Santa Fe Flute School website under the Resources tab. So that's santafefluteschool.com. There's videos up there and some sheet music, and I'll be adding more to that site as time goes on. Also, you'll find information there about private lessons. I give private lessons over Skype, so no matter where you live in the world, I can help you become the flute player that you'd like to be. This is Scott August saying, play in harmony.